1,000 deaths, 1,000 lives within a person's life.
In the head, get in the head of dying 1,000 times.
Get in the head of dying 1,000 times through the power of technology. Welcome to Wide Flank.
You ever get sucked into your TV? Because buckle up.
You ever see is it Poltergeist, or what's the one with Debbie Harry's lips?
I don't know.
It's not Poltergeist. Poltergeist is the kid literally gets sucked into the TV.
Yeah.
And then there's Long Live the New Flesh, which
that's
Debbie Harry TV movie is what I'm typing into the computer right now.
Wait, Long Live the New Flesh, is that like Cronenberg movie?
It's Cronenberg, which means it's called Welcome to Wide Flank. It's called Videodrome.
There it is.
In the long lineage of Poltergeist, Videodrome, Rocco's Wild Life, Rocco's Modern World, comes 1,000 deaths. We got a conversation with Prush for you, folks.
Game director, Prush, new game, new demo, chill dude, fun talk.
Here's the actual information. It's today on the Dev Talk. We've got Prashast Thapan talking about their studio's new game, 1,000 Deaths. At a certain point, I started freaking out because I realized I knew the designer of the game.
Yeah.
The level designer.
You could see Sean's face change at that point for those watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
For the audio listeners, you're fucked.
Don't worry about it. What did we talk about?
Well, they're about to find out.
Yeah,
because we're jumping into the episode now. This is the end of the intro.
Two, one, and then TV turn on sound effect.
Welcome to another Wide Flank Dev Talk. Today, Sean and I will be talking to game director Prashast Thapan about his 3D platformer 1,000 Deaths. Hi, Prush. We're so happy to have you on.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're super stoked to talk to you. And we're going to get right into it. How would you... So your game is called 1,000 Deaths. How would you describe 1,000 Deaths?
So the first thing you have to know is that you die a lot. So that's one of the reasons we call it 1,000 Deaths. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of ways to look at it. One is when you are doing the platforming challenges, the levels can be done in a matter of seconds, but they can also be done in a longer period of time. But you will probably die to figure out the route. So you will die a lot, and that is one thing. The other thing is you are playing through these stories of characters, and you're kind of with them from birth to death. And that is a little bit more exploration heavy. But when you die, there's like multiple different ways you can, and there's multiple endings. So there's not 1,000 of them, but that's the other kind of death aspect. So
death is baked into the narrative of the game as well.
Yes, it's baked into the DNA of the mechanics, but also the story.
The narrative. Yeah, totally. Because like what's currently available and what Alon and I played was the demo that's currently available on Steam.
Link in bio.
Yes.
And that demo, it's like very much a demo. It's like a taste. You get like a taste of all the different like mechanics and so like truly from the demo, I didn't get a sense that it would be like that broad of a scope of like a full life of a character because the demo starts with a character reflecting on their life and their choices. So like what made you want to explore like the full arc of a character's life?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to like way back before I even started the game. I got really interested in video games as a space to practice making choices. Because when you make a choice in a game and it changes the narrative, there's no like real world consequence. Like you as a person are not experiencing the consequence that the player is. But I think there's a really cool like learning opportunity there, learning from the failure of your assumed avatar. So that kind of idea I really love, and that's something I wanted to reflect in this title. So that's sort of how I began this exploration of like, okay, let's make something where we can make choices that are very relatable, and just like this drama that we encounter as human beings. And let's get to play it out, while at the same time, like avoiding kind of being too morally prescriptive, because I do think life is chaotic and noisy, and you might do the best things and be the best person, but maybe things just don't go your way. So there's a lot of that kind of dark humor in the game as well.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned multiple endings, because we were kind of wondering about that too. Like, so the first choice that you're kind of presented with is if you're going to let your best friend leave or if you're going to go with them, basically. And it's sort of, to me, presented as like you made a mistake earlier in your life and you should have gone with them.
Yeah.
And then like when you actually play it out, it's like, oh, it's not going that as well as you thought it might have been. So I was wondering, like, are there like, do each of those different branches have their own sort of ending, or is there sort of like a preference to like, you should have done this one and this is like the good one and that one is bad? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. As much as possible, we try to make it so that there's good and bad things that happen to you, because that feels really like life.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, your character is like mainly regretting, like, oh, I just stayed in the same town all my life. I was born here and I'm gonna die here. And like, it's that late stage of life. Your character Vayu is contemplating. Vayu's like, oh, I just spent like 100 years here and I'm about to die. And what if I had gone with my best friend that day?
Yeah.
And when you play it as a teen Vayu, like you go back in time and you play as teen Vayu, you're like, wait, my best friend isn't all that.
I didn't want to say it. The way I've been thinking about it is like, because the other character's name is Maxi, and I'll let you describe Maxi in a second, but like my gut response to this character was like, we've all had a friend like Maxi, and I was just describing it to Alon as like, it's when you're like 12 or 13 and they're the cool one and they're always pushing you to do stuff and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, like, but how would you describe Maxi as a character and their relationship to Vayu?
So Maxi is all about impulse and just acts totally based on impulse. And so each character actually is inspired by different elements. So Maxi is fire, Vayu is wind. And so basically we call that first episode Firestorm, because a lot of stuff comes together, and that's like the coming together of fire and wind. So Maxi acts based on impulse, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it is that friend that is so charismatic, so cool as maybe a teenager. But then when you kind of do go with them as an adult, you kind of see like, oh, you kind of peaked as a teenager, possibly, So, can't name names, but definitely based on certain real life experiences.
I have like what. I don't think they're listening to this show, but I have like one specific friend from my past that I was just like, oh man, like
seen
it's
this
just
before.
It gets dire at a certain point, in the relationship.
I mean, I don't want to put pressure on you to name names, but like, is Vayu sort of, from your perspective, are you Vayu? Like, there's all this existential dread and regret, and like, to me, playing the demo, I felt like, well, I've felt these feelings, so it's either like that Vayu is just a super relatable character in general, and like everyone's kind of at a certain age thinking some of these thoughts before, or was it kind of like you were, writing yourself into the game a little bit?
That's a good question. I think I relate to each character as like different parts.
Yeah.
Bayou was just, a good way to start framing the game. And I think when you play the full game, each character is explored in a deep way. So you do get the opportunity to get to know each of them and play as each of them,
Cool.
understand each of their beliefs and thought systems. So
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell that. Sorry, Sean. I couldn't tell that from the demo because it sort of feels like Value's like just the main character in the demo. But yeah, there's multiple main characters, I guess.
Yeah, there's 4 of them. So each based on the 4 elements. So we have air as Vayu, fire as Maxi, earth as Terry, and water as Boga. So each of them is really weird and unique. And yeah, I can't wait for you guys to check it out.
Yeah.
I'll send you a key in March when we have it all ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Podcast privilege.
Why flank? So as we're talking about like player characters and stuff, I do kind of want to get more into talking about like the design of the game as well. And like there's a very top level thing of you start the game controlling like a little TV person that is not Vayu, is not Maxi. And I guess my question is like what are you thinking when you're having the player control? Because the television character, the game. Oh, I'm trying to make this a simple question because I was able to identify early on in the game. There's like story mode and arcade mode, and that's a whole other conversation unto itself. In the arcade mode, you only play as the television avatar. So like, what is the logic behind like starting with the television character? Like what separates the television from the 4 elemental characters?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the gimmick of the game is that whenever you are faced with a conflict as a character or faced with a tough choice, you're watching TV. You just happen to be watching TV and you get sucked into the TV and with the cool shader effect.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that happens several times in the game at every like critical juncture where you have to make a choice. So basically your TV starts to explore the mind of the characters, and each portal that they go behind or a level, they can unlock a little video clip that tells you a little bit about how the character is feeling and thinking. So it's this concept of you happen to get pulled into the TV while you're watching something, and you're like kind of like, what am I doing in life? And then this TV explores your little mind. It's basically a platforming hub, and goes to each door, and unlocks little video clips that tell you how your character is feeling, which then help you to make that decision at the end of that platforming hub. So that just happens over and over.
So then there is this like relationship between like media and the characters then of like diving in and out of each other, like because I'm trying to parse out like what the game's perspective on media is exactly, like whether it's like cynical or celebratory, because like Vayu seems pretty sad to be on the computer all the time. Like there's like certain details where it's just like, oh, this guy's deep in computer world, and we've probably all been there. So like, yeah, I guess it's like, what do you think the relationship is between like media in the game and characters in the game?
Yeah, I think at its very core, it's that it's there. It's just there, and I think generally the game is trying to say, at least from my perspective, and I think, of course, this is something people will interpret for themselves, and that's a part of it too.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I do think, there's a difference between like sitting and thinking about life and, coming up with ideas and just, maybe you're looking at the trees or whatever, versus when you look at a screen, like your mind goes places, like it goes places very quickly, very fast.
Yeah.
And I think we tried to capture that with the game, like that this can take you to places in your brain in ways that you cannot by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you'll also see the TV characters' main mechanic is like walking on these curved surfaces and kind of accessing parts of that mind that it's exploring that the regular characters cannot do. Like they cannot, walk on any surface, walk on any wall and access any part of that weird little headspace. But the TV can.
Beautiful.
So that's how we're thinking about it. Obviously, like I'm not expecting the players to do the like work to like analyze and interpret this, but I think it's kind of like a subconscious thing.
It's cool. Yeah, I love that.
It's the kind of thing that's like if you like want to keep thinking about it, like you can discover
it's
it,
there.
or you can
play
the game in a surface level way and still have like a playful, because it's a playful. Sorry, it's Alon's turn to ask a question, but I'm just popping off.
It's all good. We're just talking.
Yeah. The game is like it's like immediately playful, but also clearly has like deeper things going on with it. Like that's and it sounds like the TV like reflects, like the design reflects that. And Alon, go for it. I'm done.
No, I just wanted to continue on the TV and just talk about sort of like, I guess we haven't described the game really, other than saying, it's a 3D platformer. But yeah, so the TV, first of all, gravity is sort of like based on whatever surface you're on. And like you were just describing, the TV can sort of like walk around a platform and be on the other side of it. And I was just curious, like off the jump, just like what sort of why 3D platformer? Like, how did you end up there? Like, is it just a genre that you love? Do you feel like it was best for the storytelling that you wanted to execute, or what?
Yeah, so I do think like every good game at its core is a platformer.
Okay.
It's like kind of the very base. It's a very base, like just movement and running, jumping, navigating a space. I just find that really fun, and it is a genre I love. Like I grew up playing, all the mascot platformers like Spyro, Crash, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You ever play? Not to interrupt, but you ever play Croc, Legend of the Gobos?
I haven't played it.
He's obsessed with Croc.
Oh, Croc, dude. Anyway, sorry.
I gotta check that out.
Croc comes up every episode somehow.
Showing up for Croc. If I don't show up for Croc,
the Game Boy one, right? You're talking about, or
no? It's a PlayStation platform by a studio called. I'm just popping off about Croc now, baby. It's by Argonaut Games.
Okay.
It's like it is like a 3D, like follow the gems to find your path kind of game.
Cool. Yeah,
sounds cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
Rad. Yeah.
So did you have favorites of those? Like, what were your favorites that you were kind of like pulling from and stuff when you started working on 1,000 Deaths?
So when I had just started, the main stuff I was referencing was that era of Crash Bandicoot 3D games and Spyro specifically. I was also playing Super Mario Odyssey. Which is a more contemporary version. People do see a lot of Galaxy in it.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna say, but yeah.
But the truth is, like, I didn't actually play Galaxy till much later. I played Odyssey first, and then when people were like, "This reminds me of Galaxy," I was like, "I'm gonna check it out." And then I played it. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, all right." Now we just gotta own the Galaxy part, but yeah. I was also like really how do I say, I admired the developers who made A Hat in Time, because they did self-publishing, and they did a 3D platformer that just blew up, like 1 million copies sold.
Oh wow.
But fully self-published. They did a Kickstarter campaign and everything.
Oh.
I was also looking at Celeste, which was a big hit at the time when I had started making the game. Just that dash was so satisfying. I think you might find some, inspiration in our TV's dash there.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
But yeah, that's just a few to
totally.
name.
I mean, it's interesting to bring up like just 3D versus 2D. I think whenever platformers, because like I don't know, maybe I'm just showing my age, but if someone says platformer, I immediately think 2D. I'm thinking Nintendo, Super Nintendo, that sort of platformer is for me. And I never think of them as a 3D thing. I think part of that is just, that's what I grew up with. And another part is like often that's like a bad part of a good 3D game, if you know what I mean. It's like, I don't have one on the tip of my tongue, but like it's this cool 3D game. And then like, oh, this platforming part is so annoying. I can't like jump well or, whatever. And so, I don't know. I don't really have a question there, but I did notice with the zoom out function in 1,000 Deaths, it sort of like almost makes it 2D. Like I found myself when I was going through the puzzles, I was zooming out to be like, okay, like they're the CDs that I need to like follow to the platform. And then I like zoom back in and like execute it in 3D. So it's almost like you were shouting out the 2D platformers or something.
A little bit. And actually that's a good point because I do know what you mean. In 3D, when the level is super expansive and you kind of die in the middle and there's not really a checkpoint, it feels bad. To get punished so hard. And that was the big problem with, I think, the first Crash Bandicoot. It was so hard. It was so hard. So like actually in the beginning of 1,000 Deaths, we made all the 3D platforming challenges kind of long. And as we got a little deeper into the design process, we were like, maybe we shouldn't do this and just make like really small and tightly designed levels that people can finish in seconds, like quickly. But they can also take minutes if they want to like go slowly and like, time each move. That's fine. We can also just jet through it. So that was really successful with playtesters. I think that's when we like kind of had this aha moment of like, okay, we don't have to make these expansive levels. It feels bad. We don't want to do checkpoints. Let's just keep it like small and tight. And I think that's when the kind of language you'll see with the level design really came about.
Totally.
Sure. And do you feel that sort of philosophy manifests more in like the story mode levels or the arcade mode levels? Like,
yeah, I think both. Because to me, like, because this game does go between kind of the sort of mechanical platformy part and then like a exploration cutscene kind of part.
Yeah.
And I think this happens in a lot of games that those two things are at conflict, that those two things kind of, you have to kind of design it well to kind of go back and forth. So I wanted the exploration to be, and cutscene stuff to be very short, very skippable. Like each cutscene should not have more than like 5 lines, so you can just spam X and just get through it if you want. Or you can kick back and like watch it, and that's also fine.
Take a break.
Right. Or just like go.
I'm here to game.
Totally. So definitely, I think we tried to do both. I know like in the demo to start things off, like that is maybe the longest cutscene in the game. Everything else is like 5 shots, 6 shots tops, and then you can also skip it. So.
I did notice how short everything was. Like sometimes you finish a level and you finish in like 25 seconds, and then you see the high scores or the fastest times, and it's like 4 seconds. And I'm like, oh shit! Like, how conscious of like speed running were you when you made the game? Because it's like that motivated me to be like, oh, I could do better. Like I could jump back in there and beat that level again.
Yeah. So I want to shout out our level designer Blake Andrews. So they actually made every level in a way where you can play it casually. You can kind of do the long route that's going to be easier.
Yeah.
Or you can do it in a very like precise way where you can do like really crazy moves that take a lot of timing and dexterity, but you can do it in a few seconds then.
Yeah, cool.
So every single level out of all the 50 levels we have, they're all designed like that.
Love
they
that.
can be played both that ways. And like, is it up for the player to experiment and discover those things? Or like, was Blake trying to like deliberately telegraph, like, if you look over here, you might catch a little glimpse of like some geometry that maybe you can land like how, like, is there exploration baked into even those types of little, like that discrepancy of timing in a level?
Yeah, I think, because the levels are so short that when you use that
Mhm.
zoom out function, you can just see and kind
Yeah,
of start to
sure.
imagine.
Yeah.
So, like, I think also to your point, when you saw the win screen, we call it, like, and with all the trophy tiers,
yeah,
you'll see like 4 seconds and you'll be like, I just took a minute on this.
yeah.
Wait a minute. Like, what can I do?
Mhm.
What can I do different? And then you start to think like, oh, it's possible in 4 seconds. So
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of people just get to that win screen and be like, wait a second. And then they try the really fast route.
Yeah, that was me. That was like my neon white brain, like
I was gonna say,
engaged.
yeah,
I was
Yeah.
like,
totally.
oh, I could red trophy this and just play it like 100 more times in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely played Neon White in the middle of the dev process. I think around when we made that decision to go with the short levels and ditch the expansive long
Yeah.
levels. That's around the time Neon White also came out. And then Blake was like, you got to play this like right now. So I started playing it. I got really into it.
Yeah.
And then, we started like sort of incorporating some of that stuff.
Love that.
Because they have this really neat thing where they keep these gifts hidden.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
we don't have that, but we have like CDs. So like where the CDs are can kind of guide you and give you that wayfinding.
Love that.
Totally.
Man,
So
that
you were you invoked Blake as like the level designer on the game. I wanted to ask, who's the composer on the game?
Yes.
Yeah,
like-
so Lillian Ling has composed a lot of the tracks. She's part of a crew called Common Opera, who also makes games. Also based here in New York. And then also for the intro track, that's Rafia Santana. She did the track that goes with that 2D animation when you launch the game in the splash screen. So that was really fun to work on, and really she did such a great job. And then a few of the tracks have actually been made by one of our developers, Luna Wu.
Oh,
And so she works actually like right over there.
Sure.
Usually. And,
cool. Shout out to her.
Yeah, so she's also part of a band and she loves to make music. So she's done some of the tracks as well. So it's a nice mix of people.
Yeah, combo.
It's fascinating that like it's that many different voices because like it does have a pretty consistent sound to it, I'd say. Like
Brad. Yeah,
like I assumed it was one person.
Me too.
doing all
Me
of
too,
it.
for sure.
So that's probably a good thing.
So like as director, are you sort of, I guess, art directing the game as well? I mean, the music, like Sean just says, sort of like all flows together. Sounds like one composer. The art obviously has like a very signature look. It definitely all looks intentionally similar. Was that sort of like you hired one artist, or is it one inspiration or one influence that sort of like painted that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I did hire a few friends to, help do concept art in the beginning. And for that, the process was like putting together mood boards, writing briefs and all that kind of thing. And then just kind of going back and forth.
Yeah.
Once that was done, we had various 3D artists come in and out to do character modeling, rigging, all that stuff, and just get those things sorted. I made the TV character myself, model, rig, and all that. So the animation, all that's me.
So it's a little specialty. It's a little close to your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we've had the same environment artists from the beginning of the game. So
cool.
Yeah, that's Steph Davila. She's also in-house with us, and she's just done such a great job at keeping everything consistent. And I think that really helps when it is just one person. Like, like her kind of language gets wrapped in the whole thing, and nothing feels incongruous, which has been great.
Yeah. And we're definitely all of the same generation. Just like my initial notes were like, I can't quite place what this art style is, but like I know it. And then like Sean and I were talking earlier, and I was like, it's kind of like Fly Low and MTV and Adult Swim and like low poly, and I was
but
like,
also like Rocco's Modern Life.
And there's like CRT TVs and
adjacent.
CDs. I'm like, wait, this is made for us. Like, what the hell's going on here?
For sure. Like a lot of I watched a lot of those Hanna-Barbera cartoons growing up. So
Cool.
I and then Nickelodeon, that
Yeah.
era of the early 2000s, for
Like
sure. It's a lot of that.
Gonzo sort of shows, and that sort of goes back to like what I was asking about before about like what is the game's perspective on media, because like it's like there is very clearly like an affection for different
Yeah.
types of media in the game,
Retro media.
while also seemingly having like a little bit of cautionary like go live your life though too, like, so it's
For
I
sure.
think it's
Yeah.
it's interesting how like forward some of those media influences are.
That's cool that you guys caught that. I also feel like though there's there's a generation that's not gonna
Sure.
hit, right? Like, so
For sure.
because like
Yeah.
TVs don't even look like that anymore. Like they don't look
Not
like these
at all.
boxy. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're too heavy, man. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. So that's cool that you guys caught that though. It's definitely a part of it feels like a time capsule kind of. I think
Mhm.
the next game maybe we won't be so nostalgic about this.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that was important to me to get that in there.
Cool.
How many people are on the team? Sounds like it's all mostly in-house.
It's mostly in house. Right now we have 10 people in house. Not always working on the game because the studio does run mostly based on work for hire
Mm.
to make money and sustain itself. But when we have the downtime, we work on the game, or we do plan. Now that we're leading to launch, we are planning to really structure
Yeah.
the sprints so that someone's working on it all the time.
Yeah.
But that's why it took 5 years, because we're not able to put in that like full-time time, but
It's
hopefully
time.
that'll
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Totally. And while we're talking about like how the team is arranged, I clocked in some of the promotional materials for the studio at large that like part of the team is in Brooklyn and part of the team is in Mumbai. Like what is like that division? I wrote the question as what's the division of labor, but that seems a little like strong.
Back off.
Yeah,
No, it's a fair
but like
question.
how is the team split between like Brooklyn and Mumbai?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, it's like 5 and 5. It's like evenly split.
Okay.
And in Mumbai, we have like more maybe devs, like maybe one more dev. And here we have an artist. So basically, let me just break it down. 2 devs in New York.
Yeah.
One producer in New York. Myself, mostly in New York. And a 3D artist in New York. So that's the team makeup. And then in Mumbai, we have 1 producer, 2 devs, no, 3 devs, and because we had just hired a new dev, and someone who's just working on marketing. So
cool.
Shoot.
that's the setup. Yeah.
Legit team. And I see the 2 clocks behind you. I'm like, I know what you're up to there. I can put 2 and 2 together. I figured this game out.
Yep. So that is exactly why those clocks are there.
Yeah, cool.
But it also is nice because I started the New York studio in 2019, and then 3 years later, I started the company in India.
Wow. Okay.
So basically, now we're at a place where we can kind of have kind of on around the clock cadence, because we'll stop working here, and then in 5-6 hours, India wakes up, and then they can pick up the work, and like then New York wakes up, and it's just set up in a nice way where we're not crunching, we're not working weekends, we're not working OT. But we're still getting it done, and it's been really good.
So it's this very deliberate like arrangement that you've constructed, and also like you are the link. Because I was gonna be like, how did the 2 teams arise? But it was like literally like it. Not to toot your own horn, but like you are like, would you say that you are like the link that like is making this happen between the 2?
Yeah, I'm from India originally, and I'm from New Delhi, and I always wanted to, I always wanted to give back in a way, because I did get to come here and work hard and get the visa and all that good stuff. But then I also wanted to give back. So I think starting the studio, creating jobs, creating opportunities feels right. And also helps the studio
Sure.
exist.
Yeah.
So
win-win.
so it's definitely a win-win. It's been really good and a big learning experience for sure, but definitely something I see continuing for the studio.
Sick.
Okay.
I wanted to bring it back to the game for a little bit because you did mention that the shorter levels were really successful in playtesting. I just wanted to kind of ask, like, how have you guys been doing playtesting? Like, I think you mentioned in last time we spoke that you were like doing some fests and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering, like, what were the fests like? What was the setup? What were the responses like? How did all that go down?
Yeah, so that's a good question. For playtesting, actually, if you know Wonderville, which is a bar,
Of course.
yeah. So they have a playtest every last Tuesday of the month.
Oh,
and
wow.
actually, it's organized by Blake, our level designer.
There you
Blake. We got to have Blake on next.
Blake.
You should, yeah.
Blake rocks.
Blake rocks. Blake rocks. But yeah, like that, we did that a lot, and that was super helpful. Although that a lot of devs show up to that, so you get that game dev perspective. Whereas to get the fan perspective, we had to do it kind of online and like through our Discord community. We also just do as much as we can. We go to the playtest at Gumbo, if you know about that. It's
I don't know about that. Yeah,
it's a co-working space down in Dumbo where everyone makes games.
Okay, gotcha.
And they have some playtesting nights as well, which we've done.
So very like community centric. It sounds like you were kind of like wherever there's stuff happening in New York, you were gonna go
Pretty
and
much.
participate. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that
pretty
rules.
much. We've done at Red Parry, at Brookland.
All the spots. All the spots. Love
Sorry,
that.
I just started geeking out a little bit. Is the level designer named Blake Andrews?
Yeah, he said it earlier, dude.
Yeah, no, because sometimes when you record these podcasts, you're just like deep in the show. I know Blake. I've met Blake.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've like joked around with Blake.
That's awesome.
So while you were describing like anywho, I just like
and
bugged out a little bit like, oh wait, I know this person.
So, they love jokes. Blake loves jokes.
A hell of a sense of humor on that Blake. That just made me freak out a little bit. Anyway,
Oh, good. Love it, dude.
What were we talking about?
That's great. That's
Just
great.
the play testing at all the local spots, like all the places where our friend George plays Street Fighter tournaments.
Red
are all the
Parry.
places.
I heard
all
Red
the
Parry at
places
the end
where,
there. As I was like,
tested.
yeah, beautiful.
Red Parry is a cool spot. It's a cool little gem. Yeah.
It's such a sweet space. Like,
yeah.
Because like fighting, I mean, I'm going way off topic now, but now that I know Blake, but like fighting games, are like can be such like a hard environment kind of like I feel like as a design and like the people at Red Parry are like really sweet, and I guess I'm just pushing Red Parry on the pod now too. But it's like it is such a welcoming environment. Like they're so stoked to be like, yeah, man, like let's figure it out. Like, oh, what do you like to play? Like it. And like everyone's so good.
Everyone's so good and so humble and nice too. It's awesome.
That combo is like super sweet. Anyhow, very close to home. All of a sudden,
very close to home. This feels like we're just like shouting out everyone that everyone knows. But yeah, man, I'm roughly out of questions. I mean, I feel good. Sean, you got some more stuff you want to touch on?
I got a few more like game design specific questions.
Let's talk about it.
I got at least I just straight up like, how did you arrive at gravity as a central? Because like I did, I'm not trying to harsh the demo or anything, but I didn't even clock that the distinction between the TV avatar utilizes gravity in like a flexible way, whereas like the like human or like more they're not humans, they're like
the elemental
the elemental characters Yeah, I don't, because the spaces that you play with the elemental characters are like by definition already a little more realistic. So like I didn't even clock the gravity thing.
Me too,
like,
actually. Yeah, I didn't realize that you only do that stuff when you're the TV. Yeah,
it's and so like, how did you arrive at gravity as like a central mechanic in the game? Like at what point in the process was it like, oh, this is playful, this is fun? Like, did the elemental spaces exist yet, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. They definitely did exist from the beginning, and there was always this vision of like each elemental character. When you become the TV and explore their mind, their headspace, we call it, which is the platforming hub that's central to that character. When you're exploring that, you're going to get a certain ability related to that character. So with the gravity, it does feature throughout, but that's a Vayu thing or an air character thing.
Oh,
whereas
okay.
The
we just haven't
too,
gotten to the other stuff yet. Yeah.
Yeah. The jetpack is like a maxi thing. And then we have like a Boga thing, a Terry thing. So that was kind of the thinking behind it.
That's
like,
cool. Yeah.
Each character is going to offer you a little flavor of game design.
Cool.
That's great.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I clock that you're like keeping the other characters' design elements like still a little
I can tell you. I can tell you. So,
only if you want it.
Only if you want. Only if you want.
No, I can tell you. So like
okay.
Boga is the water character who has basically like two little stress balls floating in water tanks as the face.
Oh, yes.
And so the whole idea is like kind of like water goes up and down. This character is always indecisive and kind of like going back and forth between things. So that
wishy-washy.
Yes.
That's the word. It's water.
That's so good. That's so good. I actually didn't even think of that, but that's perfect. Actually, that's awesome.
Thank you.
But the main thing for Boga is this is a toggle switch that just sort of changes the movement of certain platforms or visibility of certain platforms and things.
Cool.
Whereas Terry's is like a pickup, which is like it's just like a plant on the ground. But when you run into it, maybe like something starts to change or move in the space. So that creates these like kind of more actiony levels. As soon as you pick it up, it vanishes and another one shows up. And you pick that up. So you kind of, every time you pick something up in the land or the earth characters pick ability, something about the level changes over time.
Oh,
you have to adapt to it.
Yeah. Cool. So I mean, psyched.
It's these characters that like inform the level design, and then the level design, like it sounds like you could make like 1,000 levels of this game that are like iterations of all these different like hard mechanical choices in a way.
For sure. And we
like
do want to do
exciting.
DLC if we get really successful. We want to do some DLC with that, because we had. Oh man, the amount of mechanics we had and had to cut.
I'm sure.
You know, that's
I can't even imagine. And the first thing, like my like nerdy experience, like one of the first things I noticed was like, oh, there's no double jump. I was just like, I associate like platformer. I'm like, obviously there's going to be a double jump. When am I getting that? And I was like, oh, it's like actually you press dash and jump at the same time. That's different.
Yeah. So we have the up dash, so you can jump, and then you can up dash to get that double jump.
Right.
So it's a little bit more, I guess, situated in the ability of the jetpack.
The dash logic. Yeah, totally.
Oh, but man, we had swimming. We had a hoverboard. We had a parachute. Like all of this stuff. Like the hoverboard, we were like playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Yeah.
You would go up these like quarter pipes and like we switch the camera upwards and like you do tricks and stuff and you come down. We have all this crazy stuff that, I mean, we want to do it in DLC now because like it's just not going to get shipped in 1.0.
Yeah.
It's there. It's just there in the code and we're not using it. So. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. And it's also amazing to hear that like there is this like it's like a hard design process of like what do we actually in preparation for this episode. There was some conversation about like, you know, like what do we need to, this is more of a me thing than an Alon thing, but it was like what are like the vital things that have to get figured out before recording this podcast.
Yeah,
Right, and this is one podcast, like much less a game that you've been designing for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine it's exponentially you gotta make some choices.
Yeah, for sure. And they're also tough because like you do spend time on making these mechanics, and then there's just a point where okay, like it's just complicating things and we don't need it, and DLC it, you know, basically.
Yeah.
So but I hope you guys get to play that someday as well.
I'm excited, dude. I'm excited. We definitely
I'm
will, and
stoked,
everyone should check out the demo. It's free. It's on Steam. We'll link to it, all that stuff, and
wish list it.
That was wish list it and download it and play it and do everything. And Prush, that was awesome. Stoked to have you. That was really fun, and thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Really, so much fun.
For sure.
Great to meet you. Great to talk to you.